Hey everyone, we're playing Kerbal Space Program Career Mode, and this is Mission 6, I believe. For this one we're going back to the moon. We've got a lot of new parts, so we're using a very different rocket from the previous one. We've called this one the Upjumper 1. As you can see, the lander stage is somewhat different. We've changed to a different capsule style using the large parachutes that we earned, and most importantly, the atomic rocket motors. These are especially nice in space because their specific impulse is very high. They don't have much thrust, which is why we have 6 of them, although realistically we could probably get away with fewer than that since we will only be using them pretty much in space. But I figured might as well be safe. They do have some small fuel tanks attached to the top of them, and other than that, we've reinforced the structure here with struts. Beneath that entire structure we have basically a combination of the larger Rockomax fuel tank with the Poodle engine. It's not the biggest Rockomax engine in the game, but it is the largest I have available, and it's more than enough to get up into space. Attached to that we have 8 jet engines that we've thrown 2 intakes on, as well as a parachute. Parachutes on everything, of course, to sort of simulate a reusable program. So the idea here is to use almost exclusively jet engines, as long as we can, up to, somewhere between 15 and 18 kilometers up. These are the standard jet engines, so they don't get us as high up as the high altitude jet engines would, but I don't have access to those yet. Anyway, we get as high as we can on these engines, kick in the rocket engine for a while, until eventually it runs out of fuel, then drop it and rely exclusively on the atomic engines to get us all the way into orbit, and then from there out to the moon, landed and back. All in all, the whole ship has like half as much fuel as the previous ship, and it also weighs not a whole lot less, but significant enough that it makes a difference. So it's about a 50% drop in total weight for the ship. The previous launch was closer to about 140,000 kilograms. So that said, we've thrown a few niceties on here that I didn't have in the past. Some lights, some heavier duty landing legs, a lot more struts everywhere just to sort of make sure everything's nice and sturdy. Last time I learned about the problem of not having enough solar panels, so we've thrown some more solar panels on here. That said, we're pretty much ready to go. I've hotkeyed my science this time because that makes a lot of sense, and it should help us stay, not have to do as much clicking. That said, we really don't have much science to do until we get basically landed on the moon. I suppose we can do some more EVAs from above certain parts of the moon, presuming we get there on time. That said, let's go ahead and get this thing throttled up and get launched. is a stable Kerbin orbit. As you can see, we have quite a bit of fuel left over. We're going to use quite a bit of that to push out to the moon, of course, but I think at this point we have almost more fuel available than we had in our previous attempt to get to the moon relative to the specific impulse of these engines. The rocket motor, as you see, has a specific impulse of almost 800, which is very high compared to more traditional engines like the Poodle or Skipper engine available for the Rockomax body frame here. So I think we're in really good shape to get to the moon with plenty of fuel and get back. We did burn probably a little more than I'd like getting to orbit, since we didn't quite make it all the way on that Rockomax engine. But I suppose it's better to err on the side of caution and not carry too much fuel. We are still subject to the tyranny of the rocket equation here, and as some of you may know, that means about 90% of the fuel we carry up is burned carrying up the additional fuel that we add on to the ship. And it's just a unfortunate sort of reality of rockets. Granted, these nuclear engines aren't nearly that bad in terms of conversion ratio, but they're certainly not great, especially closer in to the atmosphere. So they're mostly suitable for extra Kerbin sort of maneuvering, either in orbit or getting to another planet. They're really good there. On Kerbin proper, they are terrible compared to all of the other rockets. That said, we're just going to go ahead and get lined up for a moon encounter and get ready to burn out that way. From here, there's not much else to do. We've done all the science available to us for this particular leg of the journey. So really we're just going to get lined up, get burned out, and hopefully get a nice close encounter with the moon. Alright, we're not usually as precise as I'd like to be, so we're probably not going to get this encounter, but we are aiming for about a 29-kilometer up encounter. It's definitely low moon orbit, but that should be about where we want to end up. From there we will circularize, probably do some EVAs, various interesting spots, and then pick a different spot to land from the last mission. Last mission we landed in the Midlands. So we're going to be aiming either for Highlands or one of the two interesting crater sites that are both available from an equatorial perspective on the moon. I don't know if there's anything interesting at the poles. There may be, but we are not in line for a polar orbit, so I'm not going to really bother trying to hit one, I don't believe. But, of course, we will see when we get there what looks like a viable landing site. It looks like we're pretty much going to come in right at about 30 kilometers out. That should be just about the orbit we want to hit. I think it's interesting to note that basically using this trajectory we would get catapulted out into an escape velocity from Kerbin. I don't know that we would ever actually make it anywhere without applying a significant amount more thrust, but it is funny to note that there is in fact slingshot mechanics in this game, so it is possible to use the moons to do things like make a trip to Duna or Eve significantly easier, or even Gilly, or one of the moons of Duna. Ike, I believe, is the moon there. That said, back to our own little section of space that we're currently worried about getting to. We are basically on track for a moon encounter. Again, there's not much to do in the meantime. We've done all the science on the way here, so we're pretty much just gonna wait until we get an encounter, circularize our orbit at about 30 kilometers, and at that point we'll start doing EVAs to identify a good landing site. But with that, I'd say that's enough for this video. I am going to try and keep these videos shorter in the future by breaking missions up into segments. So next time we will get to the moon, circularize our orbit there, and start surveying for a landing site. But in the meantime, thanks for watching.